K-12 pupils in the Vuwani area are staying positive in spite of having to write their exams in a damaged school. In 2015, at least 30 schools were torched or vandalized during violent demarcation protests there. To date, some schools are yet to be fixed. Newzroom Afrika's Pulani Phadi has more.
It is an attempt at a final lap for these pupils. A long year filled with challenges draws to an end. Pupils here at Radzambo Secondary School are confident that despite the aging infrastructure and burned-out classes they've had to study in, they will pass well.
Learning in this school that was burned down, it wasn't that bad because what I came here was not the school being burning, but I came here for my future and learning. So I made sure that it didn't affect me. It doesn't affect me at all. I make sure that I study hard, not focusing on the school being burned down, but studying so hard so that I can pass and pursue my dreams.
I studied good, but when we look at our environment, it is not good because we were entering at a burned school. Yeah. And infrastructure is not good. I need this school to be renovated again and put another infrastructure. Yeah, and build another class and make our yard so clean.
5 years ago, violent anti-demarcation protests erupted in the area and schools such as Radzambo were not spared. Still no roof here, while ceilings in this examination room come loose.
It's more difficult because the building was not fine. We want a renovation for that building. You don't want a new building. We want a renovation for that building for the learners.
The local traditional council says more could be done beyond just renovations.
We didn't burn our school, so criminals from outside came to burn our school. So we think that government must help us to repair the damage that was caused.
The provincial government has heard the plea and says it has a program in place to assist such schools.
COVID-19 exposed us. Some independent school and former model C schools went on with the lessons, and we didn't have the technology. So we are going to fix the 123 storm damaged schools. The plans are there. We're just waiting for the money. All the money have been taken for COVID-19.
Vembe, in which Vuwani is situated, is one of the best performing districts in the country despite the dire challenges of infrastructure in the area. For Newzroom Afrika, Channel 405, I'm Pulani Phadi in Vuwani, Limpopo.
The Basic Education Department has said that pupils who tested positive for COVID-19 would be allowed to write their final matric examinations. The department had previously issued a set of guidelines indicating pupils who tested positive for the virus would not be allowed to enter the exam center. Now, candidates who test positive are deemed fit and will be allowed to write at a different venue under secure conditions. Joining me now to talk about this is the Executive Director at the National Professional Teachers Organization of South Africa, Basil Manuel. Basil, good evening and thank you very much for joining us tonight on the Newsfeed Late Night. You have previously expressed confidence in the matric examination machinery to be able to deliver the exams and for the pupils to be able to certainly write without a glitch. However, you've been taken aback by the announcement today, and that circular released by the Department of Basic Education, that learners who test positive for COVID-19 will be allowed to write at a separate isolation room at the same venue, at the same matric writing center. Why is that a concern for you?
For a number of reasons, and good evening. First of all, we weren't consulted, but that is the secondary part. The first part is that we are worried about infections. We're worried about our members. We are worried about the learners. And we are worried about the lack of detail that has come with that news brief that we have seen. We haven't seen a circular yet. And of course, the lack of detail is what concerns us most. When the learners arrive at school, if they are positive already, isn't there a potential for exposure of others? Isn't there a potential for infecting others? And we believe that we've hastily done this whilst we've had time. And of course, we have a whole bank of members who have had comorbidities as well, and they are desperately concerned. But also, this goes against everything the country has been telling the entire population in terms of safety, isolation, etc. How is it suddenly possible that this is okay? What about the child who will come to school in with public transport? Will that not be dangerous? So there are many unanswered questions which we would like answered as soon as possible.
It seems they are reaching this decision based on consultation with the Department of Health, and that's what they're saying the advice actually comes from, considering, of course, the right for the learners to write their examination, and I suppose weighing that up against also the right of the other learners to be in a healthy and safe environment, including the teachers themselves. Are you not entirely convinced by that science that comes from the Department of Health?
In fact, we don't know the science because we haven't been included. But that having been said, this is why we want to know what exactly is going on. What has suddenly changed that can make an infected person leave an isolation place? And to say they must be isolated at the same school says that they are going to be in contact with a whole lot of other people. Now, we are balancing the rights of one group against the rights of the majority. And that is where our concern lies. And we are desperately worried. But our request for a meeting has been replied to, and we will be meeting with the Director General tomorrow, where we can thrash some of these things out and get some answers. Our members are terrified.
Yeah.
People who've tried to keep themselves safe are terrified.
Was this new direction in any way tested today in practice, where maybe some of the learners showed up with the temperature higher than 38 degrees, or have you got no reports of such today?
We don't have reports of such, but let me also be clear that when that first directive came out of learners that test higher than 38 but show no visible signs of illness, that they must be isolated and right for that day and then be tested on that day to determine whether they're positive or not, we cautiously accepted that that could be acceptable. However, now when we talk about people who have been tested and are positive, it changes the dynamic ever so slightly. So no, I don't know if any of them arrived at school and were positive. We've had no reports of such, but of course reports are slow to come in, and we will still collate some of these even into the night.
One would just have to ask, do we even have enough isolation rooms at our schools to be able to carry this out and allow the learners to write in those isolation rooms?
Well, that's the million-dollar question. Certain assumptions are being made that every school has these. Now, you must remember that there are thousands of other children in the schools. They are supposed to be there until the 15th of December. And if we start utilizing all the rooms for the matriculants, as they are already taking up a lot of space because of the larger number, that will displace the other children at school. And so we will see that the teaching time for the rest of the school is cut down on, and that is another concern which we've got to raise and table, because we've lost a lot of time. We want to see the maximum in terms of this group that is there, so that they have fewer gaps in the next year.
All right, let's talk then about the invigilation process. It looks like, since the advice comes from the Department of Health, furthermore, the responsibility for the invigilation of learners who test positive will then fall on the shoulders of that department. Does that make any sense for you as teachers? And is that a process that you think is workable?
Well, we certainly are uncomfortable with our members being exposed to danger, untold danger. We are also, we would have great difficulty with an instruction which we believe is not necessarily fully legal.